Welcome back to Real Takes, where we are all movie love all the time. I'm Stott, and tonight, before we get into the movie we're celebrating, we are going to highlight an organization that I think is important and deserves more support. We are in Gay Pride Month, and as you might know, there's a new legislative attack on gay and trans people happening all over the country right now. So we need legal defense in many states, in many places. The conservative forces in this country smell blood with our new Supreme Court, and they are going after us on many different fronts in many different places, testing the legal waters to see how restrictive and discriminatory they can be. So I would like to highlight the Lambda Legal Defense Fund, which is an organization of lawyers working for gay and trans rights in the United States. And I will put the link to them in the description below. And if you can support them now or on an ongoing basis, that would be fantastic. So we are in LGBTQ Pride Month, Gay Trans Pride Month, and we are also still in the time of Gemini. And so tonight we are celebrating the film High Art from 1998, written and directed by Lisa Cholodenko, starring Ally Sheedy, Patricia Clarkson, and Radha Mitchell. Now, High Art came on sort of the later end of a wave of cinema called the queer new wave, or new queer cinema, that started in the late 80s and really exploded in the early 90s, where we suddenly had queer artists who had access to telling their own stories, kind of on a new level of raw truth, and also sometimes playing with form as a way to represent their kind of outsider experience in culture. So, so many great filmmakers to talk about: Marlon Riggs, Jenny Livingston, Todd Haynes, Gus Van Sant, Sadie Benning, working across the spectrum from, truly experimental and underground to, more mainstream narrative filmmaking. And in particular, there were a handful of lesbian filmmakers who kind of rose up in these years. So Cheryl Dunye started making work, in particular 1996's The Watermelon Woman is a great film. Maria Magenti made The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love, which is a really sweet high school coming of age lesbian rom-com. Rose Troche made 1994's Go Fish. Jamie Babbitt wrote and directed But I'm a Cheerleader, which came out in 1999, and Lisa Cholodenko came out with High Art in 1998. So High Art was Lisa Cholodenko's debut feature. She started writing the script when she was in film school at Columbia. Before she went to film school, she had been an assistant editor on a bunch of films, and that kind of got her in. And then she realized if she really wanted to do this, she wanted to go to film school. And she went to Columbia, and she was very influenced by American cinema of the 70s. And then Milos Forman was one of her mentors, and he became a big influence on her. And so she started writing the script in film school, but she didn't finish it until a year or two after film school, when she connected with some producers who got serious about supporting it. And High Art is about a young woman who is an assistant editor at a photography magazine, and she discovers that her upstairs neighbor is a once celebrated photographer who's kind of dropped off the radar, but whose work is very compelling to our main character, Sid. And the photographer is played by Ally Sheedy, and Ally Sheedy is a photographer, and she's also a heroin addict and a lesbian, in a relationship with her girlfriend, played by none other than the one and only Patricia Clarkson. So this movie was really a revelation on a lot of levels. First of all, it was shot in a much, it's really grounded in a certain kind of 1990s New York City downtown culture, and then aesthetically it's really grounded in 1970s cinema. So those two worlds, the culture of the characters and the aesthetic of the filmmaker, kind of coming together in this movie in a really effective way. And Lisa Cholodenko has said she was worried when she was editing it because it is got a kind of slower, quieter pace than certainly movies of the late 90s had. And it was a lovely surprise for her when it was as well received as it was. You all know by now that I love 70s cinema and I love bringing down the pace, so I was all in on that front. And then as a longtime New Yorker, it's not a New York movie in the sense of, we don't have like the backdrop of the city in a grand way being represented, but it's a New York movie in that I had never seen a certain kind of New York City lesbian, queer, downtown culture on film quite this way before. So in that sense, it's a real New York movie. The movie has some really interesting acting in it. I mean, it's beautifully acted by everybody, but it was a really big moment for Ally Sheedy, who, if you don't know, had become a huge star in the 80s with what was referred to as the Brat Pack movie, when there were a lot of teen movies being made, and she became a huge star through The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire, and even before those she was in War Games with Matthew Broderick. And then she was working all through the 90s, but in stuff that just didn't have the same kind of profile. And then she did this movie, and it kind of, it got her a lot of attention as having a wider range and being interested in, more independent work than people had thought of her as being interested in before. So that was a really interesting choice to have her come in and do this movie, in particular because she plays a character who had success, and in the case of the film, walked away from the success, was uncomfortable with the way that success happened. And I don't think it's an exact parallel to her story, but certainly there's overlap between Ally Sheedy's story and the way success came to her and her character story in the film. But then we have to talk about Patricia Clarkson. Patricia Clarkson had been working for at least 15 years when she made High Art. But High Art really launched her career. It was what we would refer to, I guess, as a breakout role. And apparently, according to Lisa Cholodenko, they had a really hard time casting that role of the girlfriend, the German former actress, heroin addict girlfriend. And they did an open call 5 days before they were about to before they were going to start shooting, and Patricia Clarkson went to this open emergency casting call because they just didn't feel like they had the actress. And from that emergency call, they hired Patricia Clarkson, and she is phenomenal to watch in this film. And actually, I've seen her talk live. She was honored at the Provincetown Film Festival a bunch of years ago, and she told the story, which she says she's told many, many, many times over the years, and now I can't resist repeating it, which is she's from New Orleans, and, you know, when she got in this movie that was doing well, her great aunt like dutifully went to the theater, the cinema, to see it, and then called her up, and I think her family calls her Patsy, I think, and her great aunt called her up and in a southern accent said, "Patsy, if a director had asked me to play a German, a lesbian, and a heroin addict, I would have told him, I can give you any one of those three, but I'm not doing all of them." So anyway, but she, I mean, and especially knowing how little preparation time she had, she like just embodies that character and gave such a nuanced, rich, deep performance of that character. It's something to watch. So it was a huge moment for Patricia Clarkson, who's gone on to have, you know, one of the most respected careers in sort of straddling independent and more mainstream cinema. So it's a great movie to watch if you're a Patricia Clarkson fan. And if you aren't a Patricia Clarkson fan, I'm assuming that just means you haven't seen her in anything, because I think it's really hard to see her in anything and then not be a Patricia Clarkson fan. And Lisa Cholodenko has gone on to have a great career. She made Laurel Canyon, she made The Kids Are All Right, she made Olive Kitteridge. And, you know, sometimes she writes and directs, and sometimes she directs projects that she didn't write. And she said that she really loves directing. She enjoys directing more than she enjoys writing, but the projects she's most enjoyed making are the ones she's written. So she sort of embraces the challenges of the writing process as, you know, leading to like greater joy in the directing process. So Lisa Cholodenko's debut film from 1998, High Art. If you haven't seen it, please check it out. If you've seen it, comment below, let me know what you think about it. Please like the video and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next Wednesday. Thanks for watching Real Takes. Hit the subscribe button below so the algorithms will tell you when new episodes are out. And if you want to support Real Takes, please visit my Patreon page, where you can join at any tier from $2 to $100 per thing I make. The $15 tier is specifically about supporting Real Takes, and you'll get behind the scenes information and be thanked in future videos. See you next Wednesday.